All right. Okay, I'll start with the welcome. So, Uki, hello everyone. My name is Matthew Provost, and I'm the current VP Student Services with the SFSS. It's great to see everyone at this annual general meeting. We have a lot of business to attend to, and we will do our best to keep things productive. But before moving on to that business, I want to welcome you all to this meeting, and thank you so much for being here. As attendees, you have the option to have closed captions on the screen. This is accessible at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So if you look at the bottom, there's a closed caption and you should be able to read off of that. As you join the meeting, please set your display name to read in the format with your first name and last name if it is not already in that format, like how myself, Corbett, Gabe, and Asib have our names set up. This meeting is for the membership of the SFSS only. If you are not an undergraduate student currently enrolled in a course at SFU, you do not qualify to vote or participate in this meeting, and we kindly ask you to leave this meeting. A recording of this meeting will be made available after the event for all to view. All right, so it looks like we have hit quorum. So I will call this meeting to order at 3:34 p.m. First item, we will start with the territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that this meeting is being conducted on the traditional unceded stolen territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we are currently situated on occupied territories. It is important to recognize and be cognizant of the territories that we are on and the privilege we have as students at this university to be here. I also recognize that because we are all on Zoom that we may be on different territories, so please just recognize where you are situated. For today, we will first appoint a chairperson who will preside over this meeting, go over the meeting rules, and receive the minutes from last year's meeting. Once we finish those, we will proceed with our business as presented in the agenda for the annual general meeting. We would like to finish this meeting at 6:30 p.m. while ensuring that everyone gets a chance to speak and is able to make informed decisions. We will be doing giveaways once the meeting has adjourned, so please make sure to stay until then for a chance to win. Please note that in order to accommodate everyone's questions and comments, members will be permitted to speak once to each motion and will be given a 2-minute time limit in which to do so. During today's discussion, I would ask that everyone wishing to speak, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and the chair will unmute you and recognize you for your 2-minute time to speak to a motion. Before any motion can be discussed, we require a mover and a seconder before any student can speak. We ask that when you speak, note that you will be given the ability to unmute yourself, and we ask that you verbally identify yourself with your first and last name and your preferred pronouns. Please remember that all discussion is directed through the chairperson. Next, we will be going on to appointment of the chair. All members present should be aware that all matters require a simple majority, which is 50% plus 1 in favor. Unless the matter is what we call a special resolution, in which case the motion will require a 2/3 majority vote. The only special resolution on today's agenda includes items 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4. The rest of today's motions are ordinary resolutions requiring only a simple majority vote. Voting will be conducted via the poll function in the Zoom interface, and each member is entitled to 1 vote. I would like to take this opportunity to read the motion to appoint Asib Mohammed, the SFSS president, as chair of this meeting. Whereas the board of directors would like to facilitate the business of the annual general meeting with a member of the board of directors, be it resolved that Asib Mohammed be appointed as the chairperson of the 2020 Simon Fraser Student Society annual general meeting. May I have a mover? If you could unmute your mic, please, would you like to move?
Yes, I would like to move it.
Thank you. Tegan Harris moves. May I have a seconder? Kylie Barr. Would you like to second this motion?
Yes, I second this motion.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Asad Mohammed has been nominated for chairperson of this meeting. Please put your hands down. With the consent of the assembly, we will move it to a vote. The vote will be conducted through a poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. I see for people who may just be logging in and receive the poll, we are voting on Asad Mohammed to be the chairperson of this meeting. All right, I have received the results. The motion is carried 98% in favor and 2% against. I will now hand it over to Asad Mohammed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Notice of this meeting was called in accordance with the Simon Fraser Student Society bylaws. I now declare the meeting to be regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. We will now move on to agenda item number 4.1, which is the adoption of the agenda. Adoption of the agenda and review of the meeting rules. Today's meeting will be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and by the standing rules indicated in the first page of your meeting package. We will watch a 2-minute video summarizing Robert's Rules of Order and the processes by which this meeting will be conducted. My apologies if you're not seeing the video right now. It was embedded in the slideshow. Yeah, just some minor technical difficulties. It's our first online AGM, but we should have it resolved in a moment. No audio. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Vote on the adoption of this agenda. Only after the agenda is adopted can the meeting proceed. At the core of Robert's Rules is the creation of motions, which are formal proposals for an organization's membership to take a stance or take action on a certain issue. To make a motion, you must At the SFSS, we rely on Robert's Rules of Order to ensure that all meetings run effectively. This video will go through the basics of Robert's Rules and how they work to make meetings more efficient. To keep meetings on track, all orders of business are organized in an agenda that lists the various items that will be discussed. At the beginning of our meetings, members will vote on the adoption of this agenda. Only after the agenda is adopted can the meeting proceed. At the core of Robert's Rules is the creation of motions, which are formal proposals for an organization's membership to take a stance or take action on a certain issue. To make a motion, you must first obtain the floor. To do so, you must wait for the chairperson to call on you after the last speaker has spoken. When making a motion, ensure that it is clear, concise, and stated in the affirmative. This is not the time to elaborate on your motion or try to motivate for it. You will get the opportunity to justify your motion during the discussion period. However, before discussion can begin, another individual must second your motion. Otherwise, it is lost. Note, you don't have to be in support of a motion in order to second it. Seconding simply means that you would like to see further debate and discussion happen. If your motion has been moved and seconded, it is placed before members for consideration and debate. The mover is always allowed to speak first and is given the opportunity to justify their motion. During discussion, only one speaker may speak at a time. At any point during the discussion, an individual can move to amend or modify a motion, saying, "I move to amend the motion," followed by the changes they wish to make. After all discussion and amendments have taken place, members will vote by a show of hands whether or not they support the motion. If the majority of members vote yes, then the motion passes.
Perfect, thank you. So just as a reminder, if you would like to move or second a motion, please use the raise hand function on Zoom as outlined in the meeting package. You will then be unmuted and verbally asked to move or second the motion. Right now, we'd like to review some meeting standing rules, which you can find in your meeting package on the first page and additionally on the screen. So if we go to the next slide, that should be helpful. So no member shall speak more than once during the same day to the same question unless it is a response to a question that was asked of them. Additionally, for the purpose of this meeting, no member shall speak for longer than 2 minutes at one time without leave of the assembly, and the question upon granting the leave shall be decided by a 2/3 vote without debate. No member can speak a second time to a question as long as any member desires to speak who has not spoken to the question. Discussion on any individual resolution will be restricted to 20 minutes unless the Assembly motions to extend the debate, which shall be decided by a 2/3 vote without debate. Discussion on a motion must be confined to the merits of the motion. Amendments to the agenda will only be accepted during the adoption of the agenda. As this is a members' meeting, amendments to special resolutions will not be accepted if they materially change the resolution to ensure all members have received adequate notice prior to the meeting. During the discussion period, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. Once you are called on by name, you will be asked if you are speaking in favor or against the motion, similarly to how it is done at a live AGM. Any offensive, lewd, or hateful remarks being made in the chat or via audio may result in your ability to access the chat function or to otherwise participate to be limited. I will now read motion 4.1. Be it resolved that the agenda be adopted as presented. May I have a mover for this motion? Member Jessica Stewart, would you like to move this motion?
I will move this motion.
Thank you. May I have a seconder for this motion? Member Parmar, would you like to second this motion?
I would like to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parmar. So I will now open the floor to any discussion from the membership. If there is none, then we will put it to a vote. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your votes and do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. Member Zan, we are currently in the middle of a vote. Perfect. So that motion is carried with 97% in favor and 3% against. We are now moving on to the next item of the agenda, 5.1, receipt of the minutes. The minutes of the 2019 annual general meeting will be available for receipt and filing by members. Motion 5.1, be it resolved that the minutes of the September 25th, 2019 annual general meeting of the Simon Fraser Student Society be received and filed. May I have a mover for this motion? Member Masood, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, I would like to move.
Thank you. May I have a seconder for this motion? Member Dhaliwal, would you like to second this motion? They have put their, Member Dhaliwal, would you like to second this motion?
I would like to second this motion.
Perfect, thank you. All right, is there any discussion on this motion? If so, please raise your hand now. If not, we will then put it to a vote. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. Perfect. So the motion is carried with 98% in favor and 2% against. That motion passes. We are now moving to the next item of the agenda. Bylaw proposal number 1. I will now read the motion for our first special resolution. The proposal package that is associated with this special resolution has been provided in your meeting package. But first, I would like to let Member Leosis speak on the bylaw amendment proposals before we get started. Member Leosis, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Asib. So at today's meeting, we are proposing 4 separate modular bylaw amendment proposals, I should say. Each are affecting different sections of the SFSS bylaws, and each is bringing about a different type of change. But first, I think I ought to explain what bylaws actually are. And so simply put, the SFSS bylaws are the set of rules that govern this organization, that govern the SFSS. So board members and all other members of the organization must abide by these rules. And they can only be changed by the membership, either by a referendum or at an annual general meeting like we are proposing today. As we move through the agenda, I'll give a brief summary of each bylaw proposal and what it entails. Then we will open the floor for discussion and debate on the proposals. After the Assembly votes on one proposal, we will move to the next one. As I mentioned, each proposal is independent of one another, each seeking to amend a different and certain part of the bylaws. So if one proposal should not be approved by the Assembly, the other 3 still have an opportunity to be passed if that is the will of the Assembly. Something I should mention is that during the review of the bylaws, we found that there are a few minor amendments to be made for typos, which we will address upon the consideration of that motion. These amendments that I will be proposing later on will not materially change the bylaws whatsoever, and I'll go into more detail about the contents of those amendments when we get to each instance where those typos occur. But with that, I'll turn the floor back to the chairperson to read out the motion.
Thank you, Member Leosis. I will now read out Special Resolution 6.1, Bylaw Proposal 1, Societies Act Compliance and Bylaw Housekeeping. Whereas the current SFSS bylaws are not fully compliant with the BC Societies Act, whereas the SFSS bylaws must be consistent with all provisions of the BC Societies Act, whereas bylaw proposal number 1 seeks to amend the SFSS bylaws to be fully consistent with the BC Societies Act, be it resolved that bylaw 1 be amended to incorporate the definitions as presented in bylaw proposal package number 1 in alphabetical order. Be it further resolved to repeal bylaws 1-2, 9-2A3, 1514A, 1514B, 1514C. Be it further resolved that the existing bylaw 2 be repealed and replaced with the new bylaw 2 as presented. Be it further resolved to create 3 subheadings under bylaw 15, eligibility to run for election, the Independent Electoral Commission, and general elections as presented. Be it further resolved to amend bylaws 15.7, 15.8D, 15.8E, 15.8G, 15.9, 15.9A, 15.14, 15.15B, 15.16. Be it further resolved to create a new bylaw above current bylaw 15.9, a subsection under current bylaw 15.12, above current bylaw 15.14, a subsection under current bylaw 15.23 as presented, and a new bylaw below bylaw 22 as presented. Be it further resolved that bylaws 1.4, 1.9, 1.16, 3.1, 4.1b, 11.2e, 11.5, 11.8, 18.1, 18.2, and 18.3 be amended as presented. Be it further resolved to amend the bylaws to change member to capital M member, where the bylaws are referring to the SFSS membership. Be it further resolved to create a new bylaw called dissolution as presented. May I have a mover for this motion? Member Leosis, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, I would like to move this motion.
Thank you. May I have a seconder for this motion? Member Parmar, would you like to second this motion?
Yes, I would like to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parmar. We will now move to discussion. As the mover of this motion, I would like to give the floor to Member Leosis to give a brief summary of the bylaw proposal number 1.
Yeah, thank you, Asib. And I think I should just mention right off the bat that I know that the motion that was just read out is probably very long. and probably confusing to most people here. What I will say is that maybe don't look so much at what the motion says, but look at the contents of the bylaw proposal packages that were sent out to the membership before the meeting started. But I will give a brief summary of what the heck Asif was trying to say there in the motion. So as laid out on the agenda for today's meeting, there are bylaw proposals, each proposing their own distinct changes. Bylaw proposal 1 focuses mainly on ensuring that our bylaws are compliant with the BC Societies Act, which is the piece of provincial legislation that actually allows the SFSS to exist as a legal entity. This proposal also just is conducting some simple bylaw housekeeping. So when it comes to remaining compliant with the BC Societies Act, I think it's important to note that any clause or line in our bylaws that aren't compliant or contradict what the BC Societies Act is simply just considered invalid and the act prevails. Legislation always prevails over top of our bylaws. And in regard to housekeeping, we've simply included we've gone in and clarified some definitions and processes. For example, we've added definitions pursuant to our society elections, such as defining what it actually means to campaign, what it means to pre-campaign, what are endorsements, as well as making it easier to conduct referenda by harmonizing the threshold to amend the bylaws by a referendum with that of an annual general meeting, which is 2/3 majority. Also, we've clarified definitions pursuant to membership eligibility in the SFSS and paved the way for FIC students to potentially benefit from being what we're going to call associate membership in the SFSS. So overall, bylaw proposal 1 consists of many little changes that are necessary to ensure our compliance with provincial law and to ensure processes are correctly and thoroughly outlined. So I'll give the floor back to our chairperson, who will open the floor for questions from the assembly.
Thank you, Member Leosis. I will now open the floor to discussion from the assembly. Just as a reminder, just use the raise hand feature and then I will call on you. All right, if there is no discussion, then we will put it forward to a vote. A reminder that because this is a special resolution, it requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. This vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. Please take the time now to cast your vote, and the poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. Perfect. So that motion is carried, 97% in favor, 3% against. That motion passes. We will now move on to the next item of the agenda. I will now read the motion for our second special resolution. The proposal package with the special resolution has been provided in your meeting package. So 6.2, bylaw proposal number 2, executive officers reform. Whereas the current SFSS bylaws do not effectively describe the powers, duties, and obligations of executive officers. Whereas the current executive portfolios do not accurately describe the work that the society's elected officials are expected to undertake. Whereas bylaw proposal number 2 seeks to expand on the powers, duties, and obligations of executive officers. Whereas bylaw number 2 seeks to dedicate more focus to internal governance, equity, supporting marginalized groups, and climate justice. Be it resolved that bylaw 1.5, 5.2a, and 15.4 be amended as presented. Be it further resolved that the existing bylaw 4 be repealed and replaced with the new bylaw 4 as attached. Be it further resolved that these changes take effect immediately. May I have a mover for this motion? Member Leosis, would you like to move this motion?
I would like to move this motion.
May I have a seconder for this motion? Member Tyner, would you like to second this motion?
I second.
Thank you. Perfect. We will now move to discussion. I would like to once again give the floor to Member Leosis to give a brief summary of bylaw proposal number 2.
Thank you again, Asif. So bylaw proposal 2 is focusing on reforming the duties, powers, and obligations of executive officers on the board of directors. So currently we have 6 executive officers, which consists of the president, VP Student Services, VP Finance, VP University Relations, VP External Relations, and VP Student Life. Under this new proposal, we have thoroughly defined the specific powers, duties, and obligations of each executive officer, removing a lot of the ambiguity that currently surrounds the role of executives. Proposal 2 is also creating some new positions and also merging a few existing positions. So the new executive committee would consist of the president, the VP Internal and Organizational Development, which is a new position under this proposal, the VP Finance and Services, which is a bit of a merger of our current VP Finance and VP Student Services portfolios, VP University and Academic Affairs, VP External and Community Affairs, VP Equity and Sustainability, which is a new position, which I'm very excited about, and the VP Events and Student Affairs. These changes will help solidify the role of executive officers while ensuring that marginalized communities and equity-seeking groups will always be guaranteed a spot at the decision-making table through the portfolio of VP Equity and Sustainability. So very exciting changes. And with that, I'll pass it back to our chairperson.
Thank you, Member Leosis. Before we move on, I would just like to call on Member Winona Young. I noticed you have your hand up. I wanted to ask if you would like to make a point. Okay, no worries. Perfect. Perfect. And Member Leosis, were you intending to make an amendment to this proposal?
Yes, thank you. So as was previously discussed to the consideration of bylaw proposal 1, I'll be moving to make an amendment to this proposal. So I would like to move to make the following amendment to add a be it further resolved clause that says, be it further resolved to change all mentions of finance and operations to finance and services.
Thank you, Member Leosis. Would anyone like to second this amendment? Member Parmar?
I'd like to second the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parmar. The amendment has been seconded. I would like to give the floor back to Member Leosis to briefly explain the amendment being proposed. The following discussion is regarding the amendment and not the contents of the motion being amended.
Yeah. Thank you, Asib. So the amendment that I just proposed is to fix an error that we caught when we were doing the bylaw proposals. Initially, we were going to call the portfolio the finance and services, the finance and operations. But midway through our bylaw review process, we changed the title to finance and services to more accurately reflect the duties of the portfolio. However, there are still 2 to 3 instances in the current proposal documents where the original naming remained. So to correct that and to ensure consistency, I am proposing this amendment. And just to clarify, this amendment does not materially change the bylaw proposals whatsoever. It's just fixing that one small typo. And this is being done because over the entire process, there was a lot of content to review, and this is just a bit of spillover from that review process. So it's better to fix that now. Back to you. Also.
Thank you. So I would now like to open the floor to discussion from the membership on the amendment. Just a reminder, if you do want to add to the discussion, just put your hand up and you do have 2 minutes to speak. All right, so seeing none. Oh, Member Stewart, are you speaking in favor or against this amendment?
I just had a question, sorry.
You can go ahead.
So I'm just double checking. So the only amendment that you guys are making to this motion is just the one about changing the name of finance and operations to finance and services. Is that correct?
Member Leosis, would you like to respond?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. If there is no more discussion, we will then put it to a vote. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote and do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. So the amendment is carried with 96% in favor and 4% against. As per Robert's rules, we will now move back to the main motion as amended, and I will now open the floor to discussion from the assembly on the motion. If you would like to speak to this motion, please raise your hand. You do have 2 minutes to speak to any particular item, and the total discussion for this item will be limited to 20 minutes. I see a hand up from Daria, and just as a reminder, please set your name on Zoom to your first and last name. However, you do have the floor. Are you speaking in favor or against this motion?
Just a question mostly. So I just want to clarify, this will be coming to effect for the next election, or are the current executive officers transitioning to new positions?
Member Leosis, would you like to respond?
Yeah, so these positions won't affect the current board. They will go into effect, and these people will be elected into these positions for the next board term.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Is there any other discussion on this point? Please feel free to raise your hand. Member Arsenal, are you speaking in favor or against the motion?
I just had another question, actually.
You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I saw someone else had mentioned this in the chat. Actually, just to clarify, does this affect the members at large positions at all?
Member Leosis, you may respond.
No, it doesn't. It's just affecting the executive positions.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder to folks, if you do have a question, that's fine as well, but please try to preface it with whether you're speaking in favor or against, just to follow the conventions that we do use in our live meetings. But Member Chung, you have the floor. Are you speaking in favor or against this motion?
I am in favor. I just have a question as to why are we combining the finance and student services into one role?
Perfect. Member Leosis, you may respond.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So when you look at other student societies, it's very common that this role is actually finance and operations or finance and services or some variation of that name. SFSS was actually quite an anomaly in terms of having the two positions separate, but the work that both positions do are quite similar, and having both these portfolios kind of combined into one is just the common thing to do, and probably the in order to streamline that work, the smart thing to do.
Thank you, Member Leosis. Is there any other discussion on this point? If not, we will then, Member Yu Ming, you may have the floor. Are you speaking in favor or against this motion?
I'm speaking in favor of this motion. I was wondering what exactly would be the role of the Equity and Sustainability Vice President.
Thank you. And Member Leosis, you may respond.
Thank you. And I love that I have the opportunity to talk about this position because I'm very excited to see this implemented should this bylaw proposal pass. And essentially the role of the Vice President Equity and Sustainability is to ensure that one position on the board is always having a focus on liaising with the equity seeking groups on campus and focus on doing the work on supporting marginalized communities within our membership. Right now, the two advocacy positions on the board, the university relations and the external relations, those two roles can take on equity work, but already the portfolio of university and external is quite a lot to handle. So by creating a dedicated position that focuses on equity to also work alongside the university and the external portfolios is the efficient thing to do. And it's also a very popular position at other student societies as well. SFSS, to be honest, is kind of lagging behind in terms of not having a position like this. So that's why we're proposing this today.
Thank you, Member Leosis. Member Sidhu, would you like to speak in favor or against the motion?
Hi, yes, I would like to speak in favor of the motion. I had a question in regards to the combination of the finance and student services. I was wondering if there is a plan to ensure that students will be able to access just the finance or just the student services just as easy, or if not easier than they were to be able or be accessed before.
Member Leosis, you may respond.
Yeah, so in terms of, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the question you're asking. I mean, in terms of having access to that individual and the work that they do, and to be able to communicate with that individual, I don't necessarily think that it will impact accessibility to those two portfolios. More so, it's just one person doing the work.
Member Sidhu, if you would like to respond or have a follow-up question, you may go ahead. I see.
Yeah, a follow-up question, but thank you for responding.
Gotcha. Sorry, I just saw your hand up and wanted to make sure, but thank you. Perfect. Any other discussion on this bylaw proposal? If not, Member Nasser, you may go ahead. Are you speaking in favor or against this motion? Member Nasser, you just have to unmute yourself. You've been permitted to talk, however. If you are having a hard time, if you could just note it in the chat, that would be great. In the meanwhile, I saw a few other hands up, so we'll move on to Member Lee in the meanwhile. Member Lee, are you speaking in favor or against this motion?
I'm in favor of this motion, but I'm just curious why we have to disclose what we're voting for, because it's supposed to be confidential.
So thank you for your question, Member Lee. Currently, the discussion we're having is in regard to the motion on hand. However, I am happy to give a little bit of background info on how our annual general meetings go in person. Essentially, we would have 2 microphones set up on separate sides of the auditorium, one where people would line up to speak in favor of the motion and one where people would line up to speak against the motion. That has been the way that we've had it set up for many years. We are just trying to make our online AGM as similar to our live AGMs as we possibly can. But just as a reminder to the Assembly, we are currently only taking questions on the discussion of this bylaw proposal. Thank you, Member Lee. Is there any other discussion on this bylaw proposal? Member Kianajad, you may speak. Please let us know if you're speaking in favor or against this motion.
I am speaking, I would say in favor. It's just a small question. I'm just wondering, like, you guys are making a new rule for keeping track of what happens to marginalized groups and things like that. I'm just kind of wondering where this role would fit, because there's already like a lot that happens with the marginalized groups. You know, they're already in council, they're included in lots of decision-making process. I'm just not sure how having a representative for them is better than having them there, because they're already there by themselves.
Thank you, Member Kianajad. Member Leosis, would you like to respond?
So I apologize, my internet kind of cut out. I think I caught the gist of the question, which was why are we creating this position when they already kind of have other channels to bring forward their work?
Member Kianajad?
Yes, that is. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So yes, these groups already are involved in a lot of different decision-making bodies, such as council. But when it comes to council, and we're going to talk about this later when it comes to different bylaw proposals, but council doesn't have a lot of actual decision-making power. Council as a body has the power to advise the board, but they can't actually politically, or not politically, but they don't have authority to actually bring about like a reprimand or censure or any other type of punishment to the board of directors. Whereas, so yes, it's great that they have representation on council, but that doesn't have anything to do with the actual decision-making bodies of the society. So by creating this position on the board of directors, which is actually the body in charge of running the organization and managing the society, we can ensure that this work and these communities have representation at the actual board table where decisions on behalf of the society are being made.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Leosis. And in the chat, I do see a very good point. Member Burson says, if you have a question as opposed to speaking in favor or against the motion, you may raise it as a request for information, which is true. However, we will continue on with the discussion. Please raise your hand if you would like to make a comment or ask a question. If not, we will put it to a vote. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. So the motion is carried with 94% in favor and 6% against. This motion passes. We will now move on to the next item of the agenda. So 6.3, bylaw proposal 3. I will now read the motion for our third special resolution. The proposal package that is associated with this special resolution has been provided in your meeting package. So bylaw proposal number 3, student groups clarification and improvement. The Assembly will now consider the bylaw amendment proposals contained in bylaw proposal package number 3. Whereas the current SFSS bylaws do not mention or define constituency groups, despite these groups having existed and operated for years. Whereas the bylaws should more effectively and comprehensively define student groups. Whereas bylaw proposal number 3 seeks to improve on the definition of SFSS student groups. Where be it resolved that bylaw 1 be amended to incorporate the definitions as presented in bylaw proposal package number 3 in alphabetical order. Be it further resolved that in the existing bylaws 8, 10, and 19 be repealed and replaced with the new bylaw 8, 10, and 19 as presented. Be it further resolved to repeal bylaw 9. Be it further resolved to bylaw 7A4 be amended as presented. Be it further resolved to create a new bylaw called constituency groups as presented. Be it further resolved that these changes take effect immediately. May I have a mover for this motion? And Member Leosis, would you like to move?
I would like to move, yes, please.
Thank you, Member Leosis. May I have a seconder? Member Parmar, would you like to second?
Yes, I would like to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parmar. And folks, just as a reminder, please make sure to have your full first and last name down. Otherwise, I may not be able to call on you as I would not know how to address you. But the motion has been seconded and we will now move on to discussion. I'd like to give the floor once again to Member Leosis to give a brief summary of bylaw proposal number 3.
Thanks, Asab. So this bylaw proposal isn't a massive one, but it's a necessary one in order to ensure that our student groups are clearly defined in our governing documents to ensure clarity going forward. So for example, we have finally included a definition for what constituency groups are to be in the bylaws, despite these groups actually having existed for decades. This has been a long-running oversight in our bylaws and never really something that's been fixed. Additionally, we've gone in and tidied up some of the repetition and ambiguities in relation to how student unions and affiliated student groups are defined. And affiliated student groups is a new definition we've included. Essentially anything that is not a constituency group and is external to the SFSS. So this, for example, would include a group like the Residence Hall Association that aren't under the SFSS, but they represent a certain subset of the student body. And so that pretty much goes over that proposal. I'll turn it back to you, Asab.
Thank you, Member Leosis. So now I'd like to open the floor to discussion once again. Please just raise your hand and then I will call on you. Member Lodzitsky, are you speaking in favor or against this motion?
I'm speaking in favor. Hello, my name is Konstantin Lodzitsky. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am speaking in favor because I'm a member of multiple constituency groups and different groups that don't really have a name. And I feel like we really need the definitive answers to how those groups function within SFSS and within SFU, because it is very hard to get anybody to listen to you because people try really hard not to listen to you when you are a marginalized group. And having those structures put in within the SFSS itself, for example, like things like collectives and like out on campus and Women's Center and other structures to make sure that the people who run those structures also have the input of the actual students and that they have somebody to fall into when they're making very important decisions for the entire campus usually, because out on campus is basically the face of the queer community. But the actual decision-making people, they're like less than 5, let's say, just very generally. And so having the people to fall back onto and people to have opinions and who want to be heard, those things need to be accounted in actual laws because it is very hard to find a way to do this in a rational way instead of just yelling at each other for years and years and years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Lizitsky. Member Lai, are you speaking in favor or opposed to this motion?
Hi, this is Vivian Lee. I'm speaking in favor. I'm also a part of several constituency groups, and it's been a real struggle to get people to understand what we do and also have a place in the student society that's officially recognized. Because while we've traditionally always been here, we've never really had any clear process of how we function within the larger context of the SFSS. There's also the issue of student groups that share the exact same membership as the student society, SFSS, but have been in the past dismissed by the SFSS to certain degrees. Some boards more than others, simply because they're not under the direct SFSS umbrella. So having the room for affiliate student groups allows the SFSS to more collaboratively work with students that operate in service of the same students.
Thank you, Member Lee. Is there any more discussion on this item? If so, please raise your hand. All right, if not, then we will put it to a vote. So a reminder that because this is a special resolution, it requires a 2/3 majority to vote to pass. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. All right, so the motion is carried with 97% in favor and 3% against. The motion is passed. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda. I will now read the motion for our fourth special resolution. The proposal package that is associated with the special resolution has been provided in your meeting package. So for 6.4, bylaw proposal number 4 for council empowerment. Whereas since 2006, more and more power has been taken away from the student body as a whole and centralized in the hands of the few. Whereas an elected board of directors of 16 students often do not represent the interests of the membership as a whole. Whereas council is a more representative body of the student body as a whole, as it is comprised of students from faculty and department student unions and constituency groups from different subsets of the undergraduate population. Whereas council currently has no decision-making power within the SFSS, nor any significant ability to hold elected board members accountable to their actions. Whereas proposal number 4 seeks to empower council to be the legal decision-making body of the society by replacing what is now known as the board of directors and to provide greater checks and balances on our elected executives. Be it resolved that bylaw 1 be amended to incorporate the definitions as presented in bylaw proposal package number 4 in alphabetical order. Be it resolved to repeal bylaws 1, 3, 1, 9, 7, and 8. Be it further resolved that the existing bylaws 4, 5, 6, 11, 14, 16, and 17 be repealed with the new bylaws 4, 5, 6, 11, 14, 16, and 17 as presented. Be it further resolved to create 4 subheadings under bylaw 15, eligibility to run for elections, the Independent Electoral Commission, Executive Committee General Elections, and Council General Elections as presented. Be it further resolved that bylaws 15.1, 15.2, 15.3, 15.4, 15.5, 15.6, 15.8A, 15.10, 15.11, 15.12, 15.16, and 15.21 be amended as presented. Be it further resolved to create a new subsection under bylaw 15.6, a new subsection under bylaw 15.7 between 15.7A and 15.7B, and a new bylaw above 15.9 and under the new subsection Council General Elections as presented. Be it further resolved that bylaws 1.5, 1.7, 1.8, 1.14, 2.5, and 22.1 be amended as presented. Be it further resolved to replace all mentions of board and board of directors in the bylaws and replace it with council where necessary. Be it further resolved that these changes take effect immediately. Would someone like to move this motion? Member Leosis, would you like to move?
I would like to move this motion.
Thank you. May I have a seconder for this motion? Member Chow, would you like to second? Oh, I'm seeing a lot of hands going down. Or Member Parmar, would you like to second?
Yes, I would like to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parmar. We will now move to the discussion, and I would like to once again give the floor to Member Leosis to give a brief summary of bylaw proposal number 4.
Thanks again, Asib. So bylaw proposal 4 is by far the largest and the most significant of all the bylaw proposals we've gone through today. At the core of this principle, it will change the power structures of the SFSS as we know them now, by changing the composition of the legal board of directors to be more representative and democratic. The new board under this proposal, which would be called council, will consist of a representative from each department, faculty, and equity-seeking group on campus, elected by the membership of each of those individual groups to reflect a more representative decision-making body and ensure that all corners of campus are involved in decisions of the society. Then a smaller subset of that council, which is called an executive committee, elected by the entire student membership as a whole, takes on some greater responsibilities, more day-to-day tasks, but remains accountable to the council and the student body for the decisions they make. By making these changes, it will build student power amongst our student groups and build a culture of accountability and democracy around our elected bodies. So I'll be sharing our campaign video, which encompasses the values and the reasons for putting this proposal forward.
Probably heard the SFSS talking about bringing back student power, but what does it mean exactly? Student power looks like having proper representation at the SFSS. Student power feels like having your concerns heard. Student power lets you have a direct say in how the SFSS is governed. Student power cannot be possible without you. The annual general meeting is the time to take action. We want to hear what you have to say. Let's bring back student power. Be a part of SFSS history by coming to our October 26th, 2020 Annual General Meeting. Exercise your right to vote and have your voice heard. RSVP via Eventbrite at bit.ly/2020 AGM SFSS.
Hello everyone, I'm Sude, your SFSS Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences representative. For this year's AGM on October 26th, bring back student power.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Liu. I'm the SFSS counselor for the Psychology Student Union. And on October 26th, let's bring back student power.
Hi, it's Matt, your current VP Student Services. On October 26th, bring back student power.
Hi everyone, my name is Helen Sophia Pahu. I'm the Vice Chair and Political Science Student Union representative of Council. And on October 26th, bring back student power.
Hi, I'm Corbin, your VP of Finance. On October 26th, remember to bring back student power.
My name is Sandra. I'm an SFSS counselor for the Economic Student Society. On October 26th, bring back student power.
Hi everyone, my name is Afoline and I'm the Health Science representative on the SFSS. And for this year's AGM on the 26th of October, bring back student power.
Hi, I am Kayla. I am the SFSS counselor for the Sociology and Anthropology Student Union. On October 26th, bring back student power.
My name is Austin Mohammed and I'm the president of the Simon Fraser Student Society. On October 26th, help us bring back student power.
Yeah, so that video I feel encompasses this proposal, and I highly recommend motivating in favor of this proposal, as it will have many positive outcomes in future years to come. Back to you, Asib.
Thank you, Matt.
No, actually not back to you, pardon me. I'll be moving to make the following amendments as we previously discussed prior to the consideration of bylaw proposal 1 to fix a typo. So I move to include a be it further resolved clause to change all mentions of finance and operations to finance and services. And secondly, in the second be it resolved clause of the motion, to remove be it resolved and replace it with be it further resolved.
Thank you, Member Leosis. Would someone like to second this amendment? Member Laurie? Would you like to second the amendment?
Sorry, I think I'm lagging. I'd like to second this amendment.
Thank you. Perfect. So the amendment has been seconded. I will allow Member Leosis to explain the reasoning for this amendment.
Thank you, Asib. So similar to what we did in bylaw proposal 2, this amendment that I propose is just to fix an error that we caught with the finance and services and the finance and operations naming. So we need to correct that under bylaw proposal 4 as well. And secondly, the be it further resolved, changing it from, pardon me, the second be it resolved clause in the motion didn't have the word further. So we've amended that just to include that to ensure consistency.
Thank you, Member Leosis. I'd like to open the chat to any comments or questions about the amendment. This is regarding the amendments to fix these minor typos, not to actually speak on the contents of the motion. We will be speaking on the contents of the motion after the amendment has been considered. Member Zemp, are you speaking in favor or against the amendment?
I would like to speak against the amendment, or sorry. May you excuse me, I spoke out of turn.
No worries. We will definitely be getting back to the conversation on the actual motion after this amendment has been considered. So seeing none, we will put it to a vote. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will remain open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the result of the vote. All right, so the amendment is carried with 95% in favor and 5% against. The amendment passes. As per Robert's rules, we will now move back to the main motion as amended, and I will open the floor to discussion. Now is the chance for anyone who would like to actually speak to the motion on the table to do so. So I will start off with Member Burson. Please state whether you're speaking in favor or against, and then make your comment.
I actually have a request for information.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I'm new to SFU. I apologize. I use he, him, his pronouns. In terms of the constituency groups that will be belonging on this council, the representatives from student unions and the representatives of affiliated student groups, do the elections for all of these happen at the same time at SFU, or would these elections be staggered throughout the year as openings come up or as per different organizational standards?
Member Leosis, you may respond.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So under this proposal, there are two different types of elections. There are council general elections and council by-elections. For council general elections, there aren't many limitations on how those elections are to be held. And in fact, those elections are held in accordance with the Constitution and the election rules of each individual student union, constituency group, or affiliated student group. The only limitation on how elections are run is that they have to be held between week 7 and week 10 of the spring semester of every year. And they need to be open and easily accessible to all the membership of that specific constituency. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Member Burson, if you would like to make a follow-up, you may do so. All right, in that case, we will move on. Member Mohammed, would you like to speak in favor or against this motion?
I would like to speak in favor of this motion. My name is Aaliyah. I am the SFSS Council Representative for the International Studies Students Association, and I wanted to put forth my support for this change because of the discussions we had on council. I'm sure
I think you may have frozen.
it is important that we make our representative bodies more accountable to the membership, and council empowerment achieves that goal. The existence of an executive will ensure that it does not result in a situation where there are too many cooks in the kitchen, which is one of the concerns that we had on council. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You did freeze out for a moment in the middle. However, I think we did get the gist of your comment, so thank you very much. We'll move on to Member Basra. Please let us know if you're voting or you are motivating in favor or against this motion.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, I'm voting in favor of this motion. I just have a statement to make. I believe that all SFU students deserve equitable representation on the SFSS board. Representation is a word that has been thrown around a lot and is at the forefront of a lot of current movements. And it essentially means the basic fact that everyone deserves to have their voice heard and be seen. With the amount of undergrad students at SFU, it is not feasible to have every single person voice their opinion and be visible when it comes to making decisions that affect us all. Also, even if time did permit, not everybody would have the ability or the capacity to share their thoughts and experiences. This should not void someone's right to be heard and to be represented on a governing body which is supposed to stand for us all. In my opinion, this new organizational structure of the SFSS does give everyone a voice, and therefore it does benefit us all. Something which I believe is of the utmost importance that this new system would achieve is giving power and a larger voice to marginalized constituency groups at SFU, whether it be that of those who advocate for the rights of BIPOC peoples, women, the LGBTQIA2S+ community, people with diverse abilities, and others. As SFU as a whole moves towards a more equitable outlook, I think it only makes sense that the SFSS does as well. There's a difference between welcoming someone into a space and actually creating and designing that space with their needs in mind. Changing the actual system to allow these marginalized populations to have an equal seat at the decision-making table and have their voices heard on an equal level represents the creation of a space. Representation is key, and I really believe that the new organization of the SFSS governing body is the way to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Basra. I will now call on Member Monks. Please state whether you're motivating in favor or against this motion, and then you can go ahead.
Hi, I'm in favor, and I use he, him pronouns. So I've been around, just a statement basically, I've been around SFU since 2009. I did my undergrad back then, and now I'm doing my PDP now, and I've just started. Really, I just want to say, back when I was around, I didn't think the SFSS had any power, could do anything. It was just a big neoliberal machine. You know, there was like, I mean, you know. So this would bring a lot of democracy and a lot of accountability to the SFSS, and I think it's an amazing step. I mean, like, I can't believe how far we've come in like 10 years. I'm frankly surprised. I highly recommend everyone votes in favor of this. This is an amazing proposal. So go SFSS.
Thank you, Member Monks. I will now call on Member Zemp. Please let us know if you're motivating in favor or against this motion, and then you can go ahead.
Hello, my name is Nathan Zemp. My pronouns are he, him, and I ask the council to please excuse my earlier misplaced comments. I'm very sorry. I am supportive of the SFSS's shift to accommodate marginalized groups, but I am concerned about how the changes to the executive body will affect the overall expenditure of the SFSS, specifically with regard to how much is spent on stipends. I would specifically just request information on how that is planned to be carried out.
Thank you, Member Zemp. So are you making a request for information now?
Yes, please.
For sure. Member Leosis, would you like to respond?
Sure. So the actual amount that we've done some preliminary numbers on actually how much we would be spending in stipends under this new model versus the current model. And it actually doesn't translate to, I don't think. If it is more, it's very little, but essentially what's happening is, because we're taking our board of directors and we are essentially axing faculty reps and at-large reps, leaving an executive body of about 7, and then making a council above the executive committee, which would kind of replace the purpose of what faculty reps were on the board. We've just taken the stipends that current faculty reps earn on the board and kind of just redistributed it amongst council. So in that way, we're pretty much spending we would be spending the exact same money under this new model as we are the current model. And Member Gildersleeve, if you have anything else to add, and if it's okay with the chair, that was kind of my way of explaining that.
So Member Gildersleeve is our Vice President of Finance. If you'd like to speak, and go ahead. If not, we can move on.
Hi, thank you. Gabe basically said it all. We are redistributing the current stipends for the at-large and faculty reps. And it works out roughly to be about $100 or so per council member, depending on how council does shift and grow a little bit over time based on the activity of student unions. So the number might be a little bit more 1 year or a little bit less 1 year, but it should stay roughly the same.
Thank you, Member Gildersleeve. Member Zemp, do you have a response?
Thank you. That answers my question. Thanks for the information.
Perfect. I'll now call on Member Kianajad. You just let us know if you're motivating in favor or against, and then go ahead and speak.
I'm talking against it, and speaking against it. And I'm just like, I want to start my talk by saying that I used to be a council member for the Mass Student Union. So I have been in council before. I feel like I might have some ideas of what's happening since I've been there before. And since I have, been in the position of a counselor before, from the ideas that I got from the council and SFSS, I completely understand if you guys want to give the council more power, because on the surface, it seemed like a really good idea, because you would be giving, council equals the people who elected those people. Therefore, very good, very nice. We would love that. But in my opinion, at least, the issue is that like when I was in council and most other counselors that I know who I talked to, like they didn't actually make the decisions that, you know, were from the student union and the students, because students don't really connect. They don't like let the counselor know what they want to be represented as. So it just ends up as most people in the council just going with the favor of whatever the others are going, because they don't want to like jeopardize the image of the student union they're representing. And so there's maybe handful of counselors that end up actually making the decisions, end up being the vocal voices there, and others just go along with that. And the issue with giving the council more power is that the power is not actually with the students, it's with that handful number of counselors, which just like imagine giving more power to those 5 people, and it like it's not the actual students that are getting the power. I think in my opinion, the council is not ready for this power yet, because they haven't connected with the students that they are representing yet. They need to be connecting with like the students more. They need to show some proof of that before you guys give them more powers. And I really think, sorry, are you saying something?
To speak.
Yes, go.
You reached the 2-minute speaking limit.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yes.
If you have like one last thing that you'd like to wrap up on, I'll give you 5 more seconds.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure people consider this, because it makes sense for someone to vote for more power for themselves. So I just want everyone to consider that before they vote on this issue. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. I'll now give the floor to Member Sarandi. Let us know whether you are motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to say that I am against the motion. I have a couple concerns. I am the current council member for the Bachelor of Environment Student Union, and we have some concern about the amount of counselors that will be given more power. We just believe that there is too many people that are going to, like, as Fatima was explaining, a lot of us are elected, but we don't really get to hear the student group that we're representing nearly as much as we'd like to. So therefore, representing and having more power on council doesn't necessarily mean more student power. Another piece of information that is a big deal is that the council stipends are not high enough to encourage actual time commitment from us as counselors. There was a lot more money given to board before, and it's just not enough money to be actually given more responsibility as counselor. And thirdly, because we are from a smaller faculty of environment, we have less constituency groups. The Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences will be far more represented on the council than the other faculties. So we feel that this information needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Member Sarandi. I will now give the floor to Member Wilson. Let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. My name is Liam Wilson. My pronouns are he, him. I'm speaking in favor of the motion, but I have some questions that I would like the board maybe to speak to. I've spoken to several people about the proposal, and they've raised concerns that the council is not currently well equipped to take on the power and responsibility being entrusted to them by this proposal. There is concern that council members may not be fully briefed and trained on exactly what is being entrusted to them through this proposal. As well, there is concern that if the executive committee is still the group collecting information and formulating motions, and council isn't given sufficient time and information to consult with the groups they represent and arrive at a decision prior to council meetings, then council may simply become a rubber stamp for the executive committee. I was wondering if any board or council members would be able to speak to these concerns, and whether council reps will be given the training and resources necessary to carry out their new powers and responsibilities effectively for the society. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Wilson. Member Leosis, would you like to respond to that request for information?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, those are very valid concerns. And I think I'll just touch maybe on the training first. And I think that right now, maybe why counselors aren't as engaged or as, the positions aren't filled as much as maybe they should is because overall, they might just not be aware of the powers and the responsibility of a counselor. So something that we are committing to doing, should these bylaws pass, is striking a transition steering committee that will oversee the establishment of strong training structures to ensure that counselors and executive committee members who are elected to this new body actually are aware of the powers and the duties and the checks and balances that are actually in place to actually hold the executive council. Because I think you used the words, the council just becoming a rubber stamp. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is ensuring that counselors are actually educated on what their powers are in order to hold the executive committee accountable so that they do not actually become a rubber stamp. I think under this new model, it's very hard for executives to simply just ram a decision through, because decisions made by the executive committee still can be overturned, or council has the ability to overturn those decisions. So anything the executive committee is trying to do can pretty quickly be grinded to a halt by the council if we have a knowledgeable and educated council who is aware of the checks and balances that they have and the actual authority they have over the executive committee.
Thank you, Member Leosis. We will now go to Member Jama. Please let us know whether you're speaking in favor or against this motion, and then you may go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Balkis Jama. I'm currently on the board of directors of the SFSS. Prior to that, I was really involved in the Black group on campus, SOCA, and as well as SFPIRG, which is another independent society on campus. I just want to highlight, also I'm speaking in favor of this motion as I've been working on this like all year, but I just want to highlight that council has passed a motion in favor of going in this direction. So board members have actually worked directly with council to do so. I want to give a bit more context about why we're even going in this direction. So this is not the first time that SFSS has actually seen this model. This is a model that we've moved away from in the past and we're trying to bring back. And some more context for that is, unfortunately, there have been a lot of attacks on council from the board in recent years too. So in spring of 2017, councillors mobilized against some bylaw changes, which diminished the council's role in the society, removing its role from council, like removing the role of council from SFSS governance entirely. So yeah, even last year, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of the Rotunda space issue, where a bunch of equity seeking groups were seeking space in the new student union building in the spring 2020, last year. Council held the board, or tried to hold the board accountable, and they did, for their decision to go against providing the equity seeking groups space in the new student union building. The board, in response, drafted bylaws that removed council's governance powers, basically systemically writing council out of existence. So that's why this year's board scrapped those drafts and worked with council directly to create these new bylaws for membership to vote on right now. So when it comes to equity, representation, and democracy, and building student power, SFSS, we really need to ensure that council's power is systemically ingrained into our student governance structure so that democracy is protected.
Thank you, Member Jama. We will now move on to Member Lin. You may just let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against this motion, then you may go ahead and speak.
So I am not in favor. My name is Angela Lin, and I am not in favor of this motion. So I just have some questions I wish to be clarified in terms of one representative from each for the bylaw 5 for council in this bylaw proposal for part 2B. One representative from each constituency group to be elected by the members of the representative constituency group. As a minority, as a visible minority at SFU, I have yet to come into contact with constituency groups that represent me as an individual at SFU. So I was just wondering how is constituency groups determined, and what exactly is a contingency group in terms of this proposal?
Thank you, Member Lin. I will direct that question to Member Leosis, but before that, I would just like to remind people that we have 1 minute left in discussion for this item. But as I did note in the beginning of the meeting, and just due to the fact that I think we are having a very fruitful and useful discussion right now, I'll remind folks that as a part of the meeting rules, the 20-minute limit can be extended, but that will be decided by a 2/3 majority vote without debate. So after Member Leosis gives his response, if a member would like to move to extend the debate, we can do that as well. So Member Leosis, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of how constituency groups are formed and how they are created, the definition of a constituency group under these bylaws is a group that seeks to represent and to work with a certain group on campus that shares a collective all experience a certain system of oppression or yeah, essentially that. But I just want to address your second point in that, you know, constituency groups have existed for many decades, and they have consistently been doing the work of equity and making sure that marginalized communities' voices are heard and that they are not ignored at the university or in general out, you know, in the world. And unfortunately, I know that if you have never heard of them before, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not doing the work, because I've been working with constituency groups, you know, even before I was on the board, when I was chair of council before I was on the board, and these groups do such amazing work, and they have been silenced greatly in the past by previous boards. And so I think this proposal really is doing what's right and giving them actual governing power to be part of the legal decision-making body of the society. I think, you know, we owe it to those groups to actually be able to have a say on these governing bodies and to have representation.
Thank you, Member Leosis. So just now via the chat function, Member Laurie has moved to extend the debate by 20 minutes. Member Laurie, can you verbally confirm that that is the case?
Yes, I'd like to extend by 20 minutes. Perfect.
And I would like to take a seconder, if somebody would like to do that via the chat, simply because I'm assuming the folks who have their hands up want to partake in the discussion, not necessarily second the motion, so I don't want to get those confused. I see that Member Burson has seconded this. Member Burson, would you like to verbally confirm that you have seconded it?
Seconded.
Perfect. All right, so for this motion, we won't necessarily be able to do a poll simply because on Zoom's polls do have to be set up in advance. So what I will request of the assembly is everyone please right now put your hands down. I will announce the total number of people who have their hands out and the total number of attendees we have on this call, and I will let you know whether the 2/3 majority has passed. So please, everyone put your hands down. All right, so first, and let me just grab a pen so I can take note of this. If you are in favor of extending the debate by 20 minutes, put your hand up. I will give you 30 seconds. And this is raising your hand in favor to extend the debate by 20 minutes, not for the motion. Please keep your hand up for the full 30 seconds, and then I will let you know when to put them down so I can get an accurate reading. Currently, we have about 200 out of 600 attendees with their hand up. That does not cross the threshold. All right, so Member Gildersleeve, are we at 30 seconds?
We are.
Thank you. So I can confirm we are at 227 hands up out of 605 attendees. Which is a 37.5% in favor. And 62.5% against. That is not carried, so the discussion portion is over now. We will now move into a vote. Let me just scroll back down to where I was. So a reminder, because this is a special resolution, it requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. We will now put it to a vote. The poll, Member Dungy, you have the floor if you would like to make a point. No. Member Chow?
Yes, can anyone hear me?
Yep.
So just given the various chat I saw, so I just want to talk against this because I'm in favor of the motion, first of all. So I'm currently the alternate council liaison.
Currently, we are about to move into a vote on the motion. The debate has already been stopped. However, yeah, I apologize, but the motion to extend the debate was not carried. If a member would like to propose another motion to extend the debate, that can happen. However, I cannot permit you to speak on the motion. I see that Member O'Donnell Nathy has their hand up. I will allow you to speak if you have a point.
Hi, I just saw a couple things in the chat of some people suggesting to put forward a motion to vote for not extending, just in case there are anyone who are not active on the Zoom call right now. And I would like to put that motion forward in verbally, if anyone wants to second that.
Okay, so let me take that down. So you're, so that is not actually a part of our meeting standing rules to put forward a motion to not extend the debate, as that I don't believe would do anything. And as I mentioned as well at the beginning, we did have we did add as a part of the meeting rules that amendments to the agenda would only be accepted at the beginning. If somebody would like to put forward another motion to extend debate, that's different. However, yeah.
That's fair.
Member Connor N, I don't see your last name. I would appreciate it if you could fill it out, but you do have the floor.
Hi there. Sorry, my name's Connor Nutley. I'm from the MBB Student Union. I would like to put a motion forward to vote to extend the session. I think that it is disingenuous to think that everybody is here and present at their computers. And so assuming that I would say that there is a significant portion of people that are simply not present and cannot vote as to whether or not to push forward. So I propose that if anything, that we consider an alternate means of that. Thank you.
Okay, so from what I'm gathering from the assembly, and this I know is not standard for us, is that there are a lot of folks who do want to speak again to this motion, but don't feel necessarily that they had a chance to do that. So I will see if it is possible to do a poll.
Awesome. It's Justin. I have created a poll. It can be done. It's there, ready to go.
All right. In that case, I think that it may be appropriate to just do a poll again on the same motion with the consent of the assembly. There are 4 people with their hands up, however. Member Christie, would you like to speak before we perhaps consider doing another poll?
Hey there. So like since we've already have done the motion to extend the debate and it didn't go through, can we actually move forward to the actual voting regarding this motion? Like a lot of time is being wasted right now going back and forth, should we extend the motion for debate or not? And it's just taking up a lot more time. And this AGM is going to end at 6:30, right? So if this takes up more time, if this goes over other time, a lot of people might have classes after this too.
Thank you, Member Christie. I will simply say that this is the last special resolution that we do have on the agenda and arguably the most important one. As the chair, I'm going to make the decision to go ahead and do the poll and simply repeat the vote from earlier. Justin, if you could please activate that poll, we will do that. I want to ensure that all the members here do have the opportunity to make it, to address the motion at hand. So thank you. So you will have 1 minute to vote on this poll, and then I will announce the results of the poll once it has closed. If you do not wish to vote, do not cast a vote, and that will be considered an abstention. And this will be an extension for 20 minutes. All right, so for the extension, there is 68% in favor and 32% against. The threshold for a 2/3 majority is 67%, so this is carried. The discussion has been extended for another 20 minutes, and it is currently 5:18, so to 5:38. I will call on folks as I see their hands up, so if you'd like to participate in the discussion, put your hand up. Member Singh, you may speak. Please note whether you are motivating in favor or against first, and then go ahead.
I raised my hands for the previous motion to extend. I'd like to take that back. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Lee, I see your hand up. You may go ahead. Please let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may speak.
Hello, I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I'm also speaking as a past counselor and a current member of the constituency group, the Disability and Neurodiversity Alliance. We've been working really well with Serena, our current council rep. One thing I want to point out is for students that don't really understand what the role of council is, and who's making council accountable to students. You students have that power. In fact, it's a lot easier to talk to your own student union reps than to the executive directors that they're creating, because these are your student unions. I know that council has had a vague role in the past, and that's what this motion is trying to change. It's to make sure that council actually has a substantial role in our student society. If you as a DSU rep or FSU rep say that, well, I'm not very connected to my own students, I think that's an issue on you. You have to be the ones doing that outreach. I work with a fantastic student rep. It is possible. And at the same time, while I'm in favor of this motion because it is so important to get this governance balance in place to avoid that huge sub debacle yet again, where the board could just ignore the majority of the student population, while the council representing most of the student population was largely in favor of housing equity groups in the sub. That was ignored until we could get enough student power This governance change is important to rebalance those power dynamics. I say all that at the same time I'm agreeing with a lot of people against, because there is a need for a transition, there's need for education, and there's need for compensation. I'm speaking in favor, but with those transition protocols in place.
Member Lee, thank you. I will now give the floor to Member Obnadir. Please let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just had a question. I just wanted some information. So right now, you're looking to transition away from the board of directors to council actually being empowered to make the executive decisions. But because councilors are not trained to essentially do this, you're looking to set up a secondary body that would then train them to assert their rights and powers in order to better represent students. Is that correct? Because if so, what I'm wondering is, how is that efficient? Would it not be better to maybe use the existing board of directors to actually train counselors to then eventually transition away from the board of directors? Based on the points that people are raising, I'm seeing this as an inefficient move. So if anybody has an answer to that, that'd be great.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Member Leosis, who may be able to address your question.
Yeah, so what I can say is that right now, currently, whenever one board goes out and another board comes in, all of those board members have to undergo training, and usually they are coordinated and planned, alongside outgoing board members, but also by SFSS staff members who really help coordinate our training. So, I don't see council training being any different, where we have staff members helping with our training, where outgoing counselors are helping incoming counselors understand the role. There are lots of ways to make this happen in an efficient way. And again, I'll just say again that we are establishing, should these bylaws pass, a transition steering committee that is going to look at what are the most effective ways to implement strong training structures. This committee will be composed of board members, equal representation of board members, counselors, student union executives who aren't on council, and constituency group representatives who aren't on council, to figure out what is the best way to implement training structures. So our commitment here today to you is that there will be strong training structures in place for counselors who are onboarding next year under this new model.
Thank you, Member Leosis. I will now give the floor to Member Reed without a last name. Member Reed, if you could just let us know your full name and then also change your name in Zoom to Reed as the format we suggested, that would be much appreciated. Let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
So I'm Reed Johnson, pronouns he, him. And I was actually just raising my hand because it seemed to me like we were going to do a poll externally, and somebody said it was in the chat, but I haven't been able to find it in the chat. So I was hoping there was just another means that we could actually see it on a screen share or something like that.
So your comment is out of order. Just for further reference for people, if you do have a comment about the actual function of it, you can make a point of personal privilege. However, from what I'm gathering, you're saying that there was no external poll. The poll was conducted through Zoom as well. We were able to actually set up a poll in the middle of the meeting. This is simply because this is our first AGM on Zoom. However, everyone still had the opportunity to vote via the poll. So that is a vote that we will be considering. So thank you. We'll move on to Member Daria. If you could do the same, just let us know your first and last name and then alter your name in Zoom to reflect your name, and let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you can go ahead.
Hi, Daria Elric. I thought I changed my name, but it didn't work. So if it didn't work, I don't know how to do it. I'm very sorry. I just have a request for information. I can't see anywhere in these bylaw suggested amendments, any provisions for any sort of like uniformity on how the counselors would be elected, other than it'll be following what the existing student unions or constituency groups use? Is there anything that I'm missing, or is there no sort of accountability into how these counselors will be voted other than what they've set up for themselves?
Thank you, Member Elric. Gabe or Member Leosis, you can go ahead and respond.
Sure, yeah. So as we were going through this process, and the entire bylaw review process involved a lot of involvement from counselors to ensure that we were really making decisions, not just from our point of view, but from their point of view as well. And a big concern was around how elections were going to be handled, and in terms of how much control each student group would have over their own elections. There was a big kind of discussion on whether they should be more centralized or more decentralized. And what the consensus was is that we should be able to give each student group the power to decide how their own elections for their own counselors occur. And, you know, to ensure that that is done somewhat democratically, we have put 2 limitations on how council elections should happen, and only 2, and the rest are laid out in their own election rules in their constitution. So those 2 rules are, as I mentioned before, that the elections need to happen between week 7 and week 10 of the spring semester every year. And the second one is that they need to be open and accessible to all members of their student union or the constituency group. So in this way, there won't be a situation where student unions are undemocratically electing their counselors. No, there's processes in place that will ensure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you, Member Leosis. I will now give the floor to Member Steerley. Let us know whether you are motivating in favor or against, and then you have the floor. Folks, if you could just unmute Callie Steerley. They have their hand up.
They are using an older version of Zoom, so I cannot do that without promoting them to a panelist.
Could someone with that authority do that? One of the hosts. And not Carrie Lou, Callie Steerley.
Hi, sorry.
Oh, I can't hear you. And also, I'm not sure why. Yeah, we're not able to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, I'm treasurer of the First Nation Student Association. I sit on the SFS Council. I represent my constituency group. I'm speaking in favor of this motion because this bylaw gives constituency groups a stronger voice. Groups like the First Nation Student Association, Students of Caribbean and African Ancestry, Disability and Neurodiversity Alliance, Women's Center Out on Campus, and more. These are the groups that directly advocate for marginalized students at SFU. Just as an example, if you haven't heard yet, in the peak on social media, the First Nation Student Association recently released an open letter calling out SFU for failing to consult with Indigenous students in the building of the First Peoples Gathering House. If it weren't for having Indigenous people and allies directly at the table willing to amplify the FNSA statement, SFU would have likely continued ignoring our concerns and swept them under the rug. This is why having the FNSA and other marginalized student bodies at the table is so crucial, and it's why I'm in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Steerley. I will now call on Member Laurie. Please let us know whether you are motivating in favor or against this motion, and then you may go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, it looks like it's working. Finally, I've been waiting for a while to speak.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zaid Lari, and I am the current chair of council. While this is my first year on council, I learned a lot about the current dynamic between the board and council. We're lucky to have a supportive board this year. Looking at the past year's interactions between both bodies, it's clear the council has been pushed aside time and time again due to a lack of entrenched oversight authority in the bylaws. We might not always have a cooperative board, so this is our chance. An example is brought up many times in the case of the road space issue, which I'm going to go over again since we've spoken about it quite a few times. But this issue was resolved, though, by public condemnation by council through a letter, which was in pressure from the membership, but it should not have gone this far. With council as an oversight body, we would be able to stop these kinds of irresponsible policies in their trust. Another example of issues within the board is the lack of work reports being published by previous boards without proper documentation. Individuals have been elected and then paid without evidence of any work actually being committed and completed. Also, board faculty reps disproportionately represent their constituents. Take, for example, faculty science rep versus the faculty of environment. Both have a single vote on the board, but represent a very different number of students. Council, however, has 40 members, each representing a DSU or constituency groups. Constituency groups are marginalized groups which have no current representation on the board. With this proposed model, council will be entrenched as legal by SFS and will have the power to reverse policies put forward by executives which go against the values of the SFSS, and will finally have a governing body that is proportionately representative to its students. I'd like to thank all the members of bylaw working group and a group of councillors and board members for their hard work putting together this proposal and putting their time towards the betterment of our student society. I'd like to reaffirm my wholehearted support for this bylaw proposal. Thank you, and bring back student power.
Thank you, Member Laurie. Just a reminder to folks that we do have 6 minutes left. I will call on Member Khan. Please let us know whether you are in favor or against, and then, or motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead and speak.
Hi, my name is Zaina. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the current president of SASU, and I am in favor of this motion. Last fall, I was the council representative for SASU, and I remember how frustrating it was that so many DSUs or faculty student unions were in favor of a motion, and we couldn't hold the board accountable. And council right now is basically an advising body, and that's all we can do. We can only advise the board on what we want them to do. If you look at other universities, if you even look at our graduate student society, the council has way more power, and they're able to effectively hold their board accountable on decisions that they don't want passed or they do want to be heard. I understand the frustration that not all students are represented through their council representative, but there is that obligation between council representatives, student unions, and students to reach out to each other and make sure that there is effective communication. And just to bring up what happened last year, we were able to ask the board to please listen to us, but they had that full right to not listen to council. And giving council more power allows students to have more saying what's going on with the board and hold them accountable. Council is also another way that the student voices can be heard more effectively and directly, because your student union represents you, and your council representative's job is to listen. We all go into DSUs and faculty student unions knowing that we're not going to get paid. We know that this is volunteer. It's really frustrating seeing all this stuff about money in the chat, but we know that this is a direct way of having students represented, and students know that they can reach out to the department student union for representation. And that's why this motion is really important to ensure that, sorry.
You've hit the 2-minute mark. I'll
Thank
give you 5 seconds if you, oh, thank you. Okay, perfect. In that case, we will move on to member, let me see who's next. Member Liu. Let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen Liu. My pronouns are she, her. I'm speaking in favor of this motion. I am a student in sustainable energy engineering, a prior student of engineering science before I transferred. And while I was in engineering science, I was in different roles at the EAAS, which is our DSU. I learned about, unfortunately, the ineffectiveness of SFSS Council in my time at EAAS. It was an ongoing joke that, unfortunately, Council was useless because it was only an advisory board without any ability to actually make decisions. The board of directors is a small group who has historically clashed with the wants of council. Council reps have relationships with their departmental student union, whereas the faculty director has to go through leaps and hoops to reach all the faculty DSUs. For example, in the Faculty of Applied Sciences, we have 5 departments across 2 campuses. It's challenging to ask anyone to accurately represent these thousands of students. In terms of training, assuming that students wouldn't be able to understand how to best represent their own student union is underselling the ability of these counselors. This bylaw proposal seeks to change that, giving representation to smaller programs such as my own. Being a part of the smallest program in the Faculty of Applied Sciences, our growth and potential can only be realized if we are given the opportunity to voice our opinions on council and actually be a part of the decision-making process. Council is a much more representative body of student demographics and thoughts and ideas. So please vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Liu. All right, I believe we have time for just one more person to speak. I will call on Member Paho. Please let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may speak.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, okay, thank you. Yes, I am motivating in favor of this motion. And hello, everyone. My name is Helen. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I've been working as the Vice Chair Council with Member Laurie and our numerous counselors since June. Again, I'm speaking in favor of this motion based on all the accountability measures that have already been said and the student engagement measures towards policies and finances that this model proposes. And obviously, for more leeway for constituency groups to be heard through having a decision-making power within the SFSS. I want to say that if these bylaws should pass, there of course will be bumps in the road. No governance system will ever be perfect, but at least we can try to implement a bottom-up system that aims to bring more conscientiousness of what students want, not like the top-down system that we currently have in place with the board of directors. I'd like to remind students that your vote towards this model, whether you're for or against it, is you telling us what you want to get out of your governance system. Council passed a motion by majority in our council meetings to not only be in favor of this model, but to also educate you all on having a choice, giving you the chance to make a choice. And even though I'm highly in favor of this proposal, being that the model does aim to reflect the spirit of constituency group representation and that your student unions, representatives, and counselors are the closest thing in proximity between the SFSS board of directors and the student body, Council will nonetheless have to stand by what you all want. So please make your mark today by continuing to ask your questions, raising your concerns during discussion, which obviously is done now. And thank you all for your time. And thank you to the board of directors for presenting a potential new platform for council to go about its duties within the SFSS. This has been a very refreshing experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Paho. All right, so we will now be putting this to a vote. A reminder that because this is a special resolution, it requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. All right, the vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast your vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. Member Blas, are you having an issue?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just see in our council Discord, Roland pointed out that it should be able for members who are on their phone to vote as per the meeting standing rules laid out in the meeting package. So he wanted us to remind you for members that are on their phone to be able to vote.
Thank you, Member Bloss. That is true. Members on their phone can vote. However, that comment is out of order. But yeah, thank you. All right, so bylaw proposal 4. The motion is carried with 86% in favor and 14% against. That motion passes, and we will now move on to the next item of the agenda. So 7.1, condemnation of the university for tuition hikes. So I will now read the motion for our next resolution, which is an ordinary resolution, meaning it only requires a 50% plus 1 majority vote. The proposal package that is associated with the special resolution has been provided in your meeting package. So, whereas the Simon Fraser University undergraduate students have reported unprecedented financial hardship in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, whereas one of the strategic priorities of the Simon Fraser Student Society is to advocate and push for the financial health and well-being of our members, whereas the Simon Fraser University Board of Governors passed a vote in favor of implementing a 2% increase in tuition for domestic undergraduate students and 4% for international undergraduate students for the 2020-2021 academic year, despite the extreme financial hardships being faced by our membership during the COVID-19 pandemic. Be it resolved that the membership of the Simon Fraser Student Society condemns Simon Fraser University for increasing tuition fees by 2% for domestic students and 4% for domestic students for the 2020-2021 academic year. Be it further resolved that the membership of the Simon Fraser Student Society formally demand a response from the Board of Governors and university administration on a plan of action to withdraw the tuition-free increases for the 2020-2021 academic year and to address the other impacts of the pandemic on undergraduate students. May I have a mover for this motion? Member Leosis, you may go. Would you like to move the motion?
I would like to move this motion.
Member Leosis. Member Masood, would you like to second the motion?
Yes, I would like to second.
Thank you. All right, we will now put it to discussion, and as the mover of the motion and also the person who can give a bit of a rundown on this, I will give the floor to Member Leosis.
Thanks, Asa. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our membership really struggled financially more than ever. Students are feeling the financial, academic, and mental health impacts that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought on student life. Despite this, at an online meeting on March 12th, the SFU Board of Governors approved a budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, which saw tuition rates increase by 2% for domestic undergraduates and 4% for international undergraduates. The previous year, an increase of up to 16% for international students occurred as well, seeing tuition rates skyrocket by up to 20% over only 2 years. In spring 2020, our SFSS undergraduate survey found that more than 30% of respondents had incurred significant study equipment costs, almost 15% incurring significant travel costs, and approximately 35% of respondents reporting that they were unsure of their academic future and ability to continue their studies as a result of their financial position. Students are facing crushing debts, a decimated job market, and being forced to take up employment, which may significantly increase their risks of contracting COVID-19. 48.9% of our respondents to our spring survey stated that they were experiencing mental health issues due to COVID-19. The summer semester was a key example of the significant decrease in the quality of education at our university. Multiple calls were made from the SFSS and grassroots student groups, such as the COVID-19 Coalition, for SFU to concede the drop in education quality and to implement a tuition deferment and waiver, but these were denied. SFU has refused time and time again to support students financially and to freeze tuition increases. It is unconscionable to continue to take advantage of students while turning around and justifying the rising tuition costs by saying they're going to create more support through scholarships and bursaries, which aren't even a guaranteed source of funding and would not be necessary if education was affordable in the first place. Undergraduate students make up the majority of the SFU community, and a vote to formally condemn the university at this time would be the first step in a large tuition freeze movement, one that the university has no choice but to address. This is our time to take collective action, speak united as one, and to advocate for the removal of one of the biggest barriers to post-secondary education that exist. All of us here today either know someone close to us, or that person is ourself, who experience the hardships of trying to pay your tuition on a daily basis, but merely making it by. Remember those people when you're voting for this motion today. Remember also our marginalized communities who are disproportionately facing the impacts of the university's exploitation of students right now. I highly recommend voting in favor of this motion, and outside of this meeting, even to continue to actively participate in the movement to push the university once and for all to freeze tuition. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Leosis. I see that there are a number of hands up. I would just like to let people know we haven't gotten to the discussion piece just yet. However, I will open the discussion period, and I see a lot of folks in the comments noting the typo, but we will address that in a moment. So thank you, Gabe. I will now open the floor to discussion from the Assembly, and I will give the floor to Member Leosis to move that amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Asib. So I would like to move to replace the second instance of the word domestic with international in the first be it resolved clause so that it reads the following. Be it resolved that the membership of the Simon Fraser Student Society condemn Simon Fraser University for increasing tuition fees by 2% for domestic students and 4% for international students for the 2020-2021 academic year.
Thank you. May I have a seconder for this amendment? Just a reminder to folks with their hands up, this is to second the amendment, not for discussion just yet. Member Ubnadir, would you like to second this amendment?
Yes, I would like to second it.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion on the amendment? And for the folks who have their hands up, I'm going to assume you are looking to discuss the amendment. Member Kisti? You may let us know whether you are motivating in favor or against the amendment, and then you can go ahead.
Right. So like right now, are we talking for this motion, or are we talking about amending this motion?
We're talking about amending the motion to replace a typo.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about the motion, not about the amendment. Sorry.
Member Ryan W. Let us know whether you are motivating in favor or against this amendment.
I'm motivating in favor. I just wanted to clarify some things beforehand. Should I just hang out here until then?
Yeah, you can ask if you're asking for information. You can go ahead.
So I had two questions. One is, what reasons did SFU give for the increase, if any, or is it just part of their regular thing? And second is, if we withdraw...
We're not actually talking about the motion just yet. As I noted, we are talking about the amendment simply to fix a typo so that when we do have this for our bookkeeping purposes and so that we can use this in our further campaigns, that we don't have any typos in it. So I'm going to put it to a vote. So the vote will be conducted through the Zoom poll feature. Please take your time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain, and the poll will remain open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. And this is simply on the amendment. This is not on the actual motion. So the amendment is carried. I believe 96% in favor and 4% against. I apologize. I closed the poll, the tab too quickly. Member Leosis, can you confirm that that was the final count?
Yes, I can confirm.
Thank you. All right, so the amendment is carried. As per Robert's rules, we will now move back to the motion as amended. I will now reopen the floor to the discussion on the actual motion now. So I think this is what people want to speak on. The first hand up I see is Member Kaisti. Please let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
Hey there, so my name is Mohammed Chishti. I'm in favor of this motion, but I just want to ask, what is going to happen if we condemn SFU here today? Like, are they going to change, are they going to reverse it? And from what I hear you guys talking about, SFU really doesn't care about us at all. And no matter what we condemn, no matter what kind of like protests we do, it seems like they really don't care at all. So should we like start spamming their LinkedIn? Should we start mobilizing in front of their offices? Like, what will we actually have to do instead of just saying that we condemn this? And I also want to ask that in the application, in the one of the reports shared in the chat from the SFU vault, it said that SFU was operating on a $40 million surplus. Where did you guys get this figure, and has the figure been verified?
Member Leosis, you may respond.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. And honestly, you're right. SFU has been acting in a way that isn't considerate of students at all. And in terms of what this motion is going to be doing, I think that this motion is a powerful first step into a campaign that will lead up to many more bolder actions toward making sure that SFU freezes tuition. Many other student activists and student organizers for decades have been fighting to freeze tuition or to decrease tuition. And, the university just continues to ignore and ignore and ignore. And so, condemnation votes like these have been used in many, many other organizations to take a stance on an issue that sends a strong message to the institution that we won't accept what they are proposing or what they are trying to do that negatively impacts us. We currently have the SFU COVID-19 Coalition, which is a group that the SFSS is a part of alongside the Graduate Student Society, the TSSU, Tuition Freeze Now. And we've been working since we transitioned online to make sure that SFU is meeting our demands, that they're hearing our demands, and that student voices aren't going silent. So I highly encourage everyone, and as I said in my introduction, everyone here at this meeting should look for ways to get involved afterwards and keep raising awareness on this issue so that we can continue demanding a response from the university and make sure that we don't go ignored on this.
So if we do vote to condemn SFU today, is there anyone from SFU in this meeting right now?
Member Chaisti, you may only speak once to the motion. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next person on the list. Member Ryan W. Please let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against this motion, and then you may go ahead.
So I am motivating in favor. And as I incorrectly was saying earlier, what reasons does SFU give for the increase, if any? And if we withdraw, similar to the last speaker, what does that mean for us? Does that mean a refund of the percentage or something else, or how are we proceeding after that? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll direct a question to Member Leosis.
Yeah, so we, in all honesty, don't really know why they moved forward with the increase anyway. SFU has been consistently raising their tuition for decades, and of course, they can only raise it a certain amount by 2% every year, according to regulations by the provincial government. But can you repeat the question?
Am I still unmuted?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, my question was like the reasons that SFU has given for this increase, if any, and the other question is, if we withdraw, if we condemn this action, have them withdraw the amount of increase, what does that mean for us? Does that mean a refund in that increase for us or something else?
Yeah, so what we are asking with this particular motion is that the university commit to not including a tuition increase in the next university budget. So essentially ensuring that our tuition doesn't go up any more than it already costs now. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Member Leosis. We'll now move on to Member Vendrasco. You can unmute your mic. Let us know if you would like to motivate in favor or against, and then you may speak.
Hi, I'm Anthony Vendrasco, and I'm talking in favor. But I just have a couple general concerns. Need to remind people that universities like SFU are just a business under the visage of a education system. But that being said, I'm still in favor of passing this because even over the 5 years I've been here, with the notion of free tuition not happening, that it would be, if anything, this was, as Member Leosi mentioned, that this is a crucial first step and something so pivotal as, our own wallets. But that being said, I'm more just curious now, if we suppose that this goes through, what are steps 2, 3, 4, 10, 20? And how will these further affect, or rather not affect, if it happens to be that way, SFU's response? Thank you.
Thank you. I will redirect your question to Member Leosis.
Yes, thank you. And I think I want to address one of the first things you said, and that is that the university operates like a business, and you're 100% right. And what businesses try to do is they try and make the most money that they can. They try to capitalize on the people who are buying their services and are buying their goods. And that really is not how a university should run. Universities should not be a source for exploitation of students. And right now, the university just isn't really making any effort to want to try and subsidize tuition. We have asked the university before, what are your plans to lobby the provincial government to actually try and get more operating funding in order to actually start subsidizing tuition? We have offered, or groups like Tuition Freeze Now, like SFSS in the past, have literally gone to the Board of Governors and said, let's work together to lobby the provincial government. And pretty much we got a flat out no. So there is pretty much a clear consensus among the Board of Governors and the SFU administration that they don't have any intention on trying to fix this issue. And so, with this condemnation vote, again, as you said, it's a first step. And as we move forward, we hope that with a vote like this, we can mobilize students and educate students on why this is important. And so I think a big thing going forward is that we really need to make sure that we're mobilizing students, getting students involved. What does that look like? That includes, consistently protesting, pushing back, organizing. These are all things that, over the next few months, that us here at the SFSS are looking forward and looking to organize so that we can make sure that, if this motion should pass, that we're riding the momentum that we created here today.
Thank you, Member Leosis, and Member Gidley gave us a update. We're about half done here with this discussion. The next person on the list is Member Wick. You may go ahead. Please let us know whether you're motivating in favor or against, and then go ahead.
Hi, my name is Allison Wick. My pronouns are she, her, and I am in favor of this motion. Just everything that Gabe has said, I really wanted to echo, but especially as we saw during the summer at the C19 town hall, people had a lot of anger about these tuition increases. But like Gabe was saying, it's not just about the pandemic. I mean, for years, students have been organizing and pushing for a tuition freeze, and SFU has entirely ignored us, has said no to our faces, that they will not work with us to get at the root of the crisis, which is government defunding, and to demand together that the government properly invest in our education and our lives. And SFU has said no. And they've chosen to make us responsible for their paychecks, to make us responsible not just for education, but for the university itself, on top of everything else we're already responsible for during our undergraduate careers and our graduate careers. And at the best of times, this is wrong. But like Gabe said in his introduction, to raise tuition during this pandemic, is unconscionable. And we know one of the most important things about this vote is that we know, and especially after SFU has raised tuition during the pandemic, we know all they care about is their bottom line and their public reputation. And so this vote is especially a direct attack on their reputation. This was already covered by news outside of the university and by local news stations and newspapers. But this vote, if we vote in favor of this, will also be covered. And this is a pretty huge deal for the Student Government Society, the official undergraduate society, which does get funding from SFU, is meant to work with the university. Condemning the university is really major, and they will be really upset by this. And that will put a lot of pressure on them and will look really bad on them. And like we've been saying, it's the first step. The C19 Coalition and the SFSS are working to create more actions after this. So voting in favor, being here today is an action. I'm just looking at my time. Is an action, is one step to doing this, to condemn us at SFU and to really challenge their reputation as a leading research university.
Member Wick, thank you. You've reached the end of your time. Something that I would like to know is, I just saw in the chat that Member Burson put in the chat that they'd like to call the question. Since that is an interruptible item, I would like to ask them if that's still their intention. And please raise your hand if that is the case. Yeah, Member Burson, you may go ahead and speak.
I'd like to call the question on this motion.
Okay, thank you. So I would just like to let the floor know that this motion does require a second, and this does take a 2/3 of the voting members to cut this debate off. So folks who have their hand up for discussion, please put it down. If you have your hand up to second the motion to call the question, I will call on Member Lynn. Member Lynn, would you like to second this motion?
I'll second this motion.
All right, thank you, Member Lynn. And just to let people know what the purpose of calling the question is, it is essentially that the member is asserting their will that they would like to end the debate on this question and move straight into the vote. All right. And this also is a motion that cannot be discussed or debated. We're going to need to put up a poll for this one. So folks who are helping us out with Zoom in the background, are you able to set up a quick poll and just have two options, in favor or against? Yes, so letting people know that calling the question means that we cut the debate short and just go straight to the vote. And of course, it's up to the membership to vote. It does need a 2/3 majority vote to pass. All right, so the poll is being made right now. I see the folks putting their hands up. Unfortunately, I will not be calling on you. This is not a debatable motion. So everyone, you will have 1 minute to cast your vote. If you would like to abstain, please do not cast a vote. This takes a 2/3 majority vote to pass. All right, so the vote to end discussion, the result is 83% in favor and 17% against. That carries with the 2/3 threshold, so that motion is carried. We will now be going straight into the vote for this ordinary resolution. So let me pull that up. All right, so the vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Please do not cast a vote if you would like to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. All right, so that motion is carried with 96% in favor and 4% against. That motion passes, and we will now move on to the next item on the agenda.
Also, I'd like to raise a point of order.
Member Leosis, you may go ahead.
I'd like to move to extend the meeting by 1 hour.
All right, thank you, Member Leosis. Would someone like to second that? Member Connor N, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, I would like to second.
Thank you. All right, so with the extension of the meeting, it is not debatable, it is amendable. It requires a 2/3 majority vote. I would like the assembly to take a bit of a break after this vote if it does carry. If it doesn't carry, there's not really, I think, a purpose in going for a break, but I will call a break so folks can go. The stuff we have coming up, I think, is still very important. So we will be putting this to a vote. I think we should have a poll being set up. And this is to extend the meeting by 1 hour. All right, please put your vote in via the poll function on Zoom. If you would like to abstain, please just do not cast a vote and that will be considered an abstention. Member Reed, we're currently in the middle of a vote and it is also not debatable, so I will not be calling on you to speak. So that motion has failed. It is 34% in favor, 66% against. All right. So in that case, we will simply move on with the items on the agenda. The next of which will be the receipt of the report of the Board of Directors. So I will be delivering that report. So it's now time for me to deliver the annual report on behalf of the Board of Directors. All right, so if you could just go to the next slide. All right, so I will try to keep this quite quick as we do not have a lot of time, but I really do hope that the members will take some time to check out my full report as it is in the meeting package. So the 2019-2020 board term was a pivotal year for the Student Society and in many ways paved the way for changes being made at this members meeting. The annual report goes over the key activities, accomplishments, and memorable moments that happened over the year, and I'll be touching on some of the highlights. Without the support of our membership, committee members, and staff, none of our accomplishments would have been possible. The 2019-2020 board worked towards advocating for students on a variety of issues, including tuition increases, standing in solidarity with Indigenous communities, making OER open educational resources more accessible and course materials more affordable, safe and reliable transit options like the Burnaby Mountain Gondola, and more. First, I'd like to take a look at some of our department highlights from the year. Our Student Center was very active, processing nearly 800 club grants and providing over $219,000 in grant and resource funding. We also expanded our staff team, adding new jobs specifically for students and hosting well-attended and successful club stays. Our Student Union Resource Office supports the 50+ currently active undergraduate student unions, and we offer resources for events and project planning to ensure the success and longevity of our student unions. Some highlights included member resource projects like updating DSU 101, Canvas, and other materials, organizing free and subsidized workshops, and assisting student unions in organizing their elections, events, projects, and field trips. Out on campus is a student hub for everything gender and sexually diverse at SFU. The lounge is a safe space for studying, socializing, and more. And we also have a Discord server, host year-round events, provide free safe for sex supplies, menstrual products, and more. Some highlights include launching the hashtag We Just Need to Pee campaign online to accompany the washroom poster campaign, and doing outreach with CJSF at Eastside Pride, and planning a student protest against SFU for hosting transphobic speakers, which actually led SFU to cancel the event. The Women's Center is a sex-positive, trans and intersex inclusive space that is pro-feminist, pro-choice, and anti-racist. We provide services to students of all gender, like peer support, crisis referrals, and a free feminist library, menstrual supplies, and a 24-hour lounge and more. We hosted a variety of events, including monthly tea time talks, feminist story time, monthly community kitchens, International Women's Week, and more. Some of our internal departments, such as the Campaigns, Research, and Policy Office, are a crucial source of support for this in the areas of policy, governance, advocacy, and lobbying campaigns. Some of the highlights from this department included supporting 5 board committees over the course of the year, providing policy and accessibility support to committees, supporting the board and council through orientations, manuals, strategic planning, and other procedural support. Our communications office is a key pillar of student outreach and member engagement. Our team works to develop and implement strategies that enhance our members' understanding of the SFSS and the services, advocacy, and events we provide through communication and event planning, news releases, media outreach, advertising, multimedia resources, and more. Some of the main activities of the communications office included, or some of the highlights rather, included the promotion and marketing support for the SFSS involved in campaigns such as the federal elections debate. For some of our advocacy highlights, which arguably I think is the reason why we have a student society in the first place, it really reflects what our mission statement is currently, which is to advocate for students, build student power, and provide resources and services that represent, connect, and benefit our membership. This happens through a number of board committees and initiatives. With regard to some of the initiatives that the board endorsed, we put out a statement endorsing the climate strike and actively called on SFU to give leniency to students who had missed classes to participate in the strike last year. We also endorsed the Tuition Freeze Now movement and spent the year attending and supporting their general assemblies, presentation for the BC budget consultation, and more. We've also worked with the university on a number of affordability initiatives, including the launch of a student affordability working group. We have been pushing for more funding and availability of open educational resources and more. On an ongoing advocacy project that we're really excited to see finishing up is the creation of a student advocacy office. Last year, the University and Academic Affairs Committee recommended that the board hire a student advocate who would be able to support and advocate on a student's behalf to the university and support them through appeals and other difficult processes. The UAA committee also hosted a board town hall to ensure more transparency and accountability for the board and to give students an opportunity to learn more about the SFSS and to keep up with our projects and initiatives. The event was held in February and the slides can be found in the annual report. So I will go a little bit over some of the other advocacy pieces we did, but I do not want to go too much into detail. But the 3 main advocacy committees that we do have are, or the 2 main ones are the University and Academic Affairs Committee and what was previously known as the Federal, Provincial, Municipal Lobbying Advocacy Committees as well. I would really encourage folks to check out the report to see the full detail of what these committees did, because it is quite a lot. But the last piece I would like to touch on is a pillar of the SFSS, which is our events department and our events committee. We held a lot of different events, and some of the highlights included mental health care packages, pancake breakfasts, a Halloween pub night, winter warm-up, Munchie Mondays, and SFU's Got Talent in collaboration with Peak Frequency. I'll just end off by saying I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to sit on last year's board as well as this one. And even though my experience has been very different on both boards, I'm very grateful to the work that this previous board did in, I think, paving the way for us to make the changes we did make this year, that we made today. I really do believe that we made history today at this annual general meeting, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. Whew. All right, so now I would like to move, I would like to read out the motion on the agenda. So be it resolved that the 2019-2020 report from the Board of Directors be received. May I have a mover for this motion? And I will open up the panelists. Member Parmar, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, I would like to move this motion. Thank you.
Member Parmar. Member Tyner, would you like to second this motion?
I second this motion.
Thank you. All right, in that case, we will now put it to a discussion. If you would like to make a comment on the report or the receival of the report, you may do so. Member Parmar, is your hand up to for the discussion? All right, if not, then we will put it to a vote. So the vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. It will be left open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the result of the vote. All right, so that motion is carried with 94% in favor and 6% against. We will be moving on now to 9.1, receipt of the report from the Vice President of Finance. The Simon Fraser Student Society's Vice President of Finance will provide an overview of the Student Society's finances from May 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2020. Member Gildersleeve, you now have the floor.
Hi, so we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to do this a very Cliff Notes style. Fundamentally, the Simon Fraser Student Society collects around $11 million from students every year. About $8 million of that goes to various funds like paying for health dinner plan, paying for build SFU, the student union building construction and repayment. About $3 million of it goes back to operating the society, paying for staff, paying for services, paying for student union club grants, event planning, all these kinds of things that was given in OSEP's report. Overall, last year, there was some increases in revenue through the Fraser International College Service Agreement with outright for a full year, and that gives us about $700,000 split between our general operating and the Build SFU fund. We spent $150,000 to support students in SFU's emergency COVID-19 fund. Some bad things: the fall kickoff concert lost $100,000, and we continue to have very high administrative costs. For instance, over the last 5 years, it went from about $300,000 a year to almost $900,000, which is almost a third of our full budget just to go into 6 or 7 positions. So some of the key things I wanted to talk about is that funding for student unions has been fairly flat and kind of underutilized. So this board this year is going to be looking into ways to change that. To make it so that our funds, so that when we put out, say, $300,000 for groups, there's a better chance that they can actually spend up that $300,000 through all their different events. The pandemic, it was hard to know how the pandemic would impact this year's board, just because it was just coming in at the end. Enrollment numbers were considered to be potentially be quite a bit lower, where we might have had a $500,000 deficit, but fortunately enrollment numbers have stabilized and we will not have that going for this fiscal year. But even still, even if it was bad, the society has been building up surplus and savings of $2.7 million over the last 10 or so years. So we were in a good, strong financial position either way. But now that enrollment has stabilized, this board can start looking into increasing things like bursaries and other kinds of support for students in need, especially for the spring semester. That's really all I have to say, because I really don't have the time anymore. Please do read my financial report. It goes in a lot more detail, a 5-year plan or 5-year history, and gives some history on different spending at the SFS. So I think it's very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gildersleeve. So the motion relating to this is as follows. Be it resolved that the 2019-2020 report from the Vice President of Finance be received. Would someone like to move this motion? Member Sharp, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, please. Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Got it. Thank you. Member Parmar, would you like to second this motion? Member Parmar?
Yeah, yes, sorry, I had some trouble there. I would love to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will now open the floor to discussion from the assembly. Please keep your hand up if you would like to discuss. Member Connor N, you have the floor. Please let us know whether you would like to motivate in favor or against, and then you may go ahead.
Sorry, that was left over from moving on.
Oh, good. Member Parmar, is it the floor is yours if you'd like to speak to this motion.
Sorry, my hand is staying up for some reason. I'm sorry.
In that case, we will go to a vote as I do not see any more hands. The vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time to now cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. All right, so this motion is carried with 97% in favor and 3% against. Perfect. So I would now like to take the time to notify the membership that seeing as we have not completed the agenda items, I am going to ask for the consent of the assembly for us to extend the meeting in order to complete the items on the agenda and the orders of the day. May I have a seconder, as we do need to complete the orders of the day. Member Lozitsky, would you like to second?
Yes, I am seconding this motion.
Thank you. All right, so we will only not extend if there's a clear showing of people. Absolutely, please say so right now. We also did recently receive some legal consultation that these have to happen. We have to have the auditor present the statements, and we have to have another auditor appointed for the following year. These are legal requirements. We will make them quick because I know that folks do want to head out, but this is quite important. So Member Singh, I will allow you to speak only if it is a point of order. All right, in that case, we are going to move forward. We will adjourn the meeting once the orders of the day have been completed. All right, so in that case, we will be moving on to receipt of report from the auditor. So the Simon Fraser Student Society's auditor, Tompkins Wozni LLP, will provide an overview of the audited 2019-2020 financial statements, which were approved by your board of directors at their meeting held on August 21st, 2020. All right, so hello, Gary. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours. Please let us know if there is further support that you need in terms of screen sharing, etc.
Yes, there is. Good evening, everyone. I believe someone was going to be kind enough to put up to start with the statement of financial position. I think that will happen in a moment. And I'll try to make this as efficient as possible. But as you will see, the numbers are quite substantial.
All right, we're just pulling that up right now.
Thank you. So I think this is Corbett's report. So we need the financial statements, please. We're getting there. Well, we saw part of it. Very good. So we're going to go a couple pages in, please, to the statement of financial position. That's the one. Good. So as I said, good evening. This statement sets out the assets, liabilities, and net fund balances or equity of the student society at the end of your fiscal year, April 30, 2020. As you can see, there's quite a few funds and so on that have been referred to previously. So we're going to work off the total column, and I'll round to the nearest $1,000 or so because the amounts are quite substantial. So starting in the top, under the total, under assets, you can see at the end of the year, some of the major assets that the Student Society has is cash at the end of the year, 11.472 million. The minor accounts receivable and about 1.657 million of prepaid amounts, of which the majority relates to your undergraduate health plan. Some of the other significant assets include cash held in trust, 8.52 million. That relates to Build SFU. That all ties into your construction of the new student union building, as well as the related debt. Tangible capital assets, 2.14 million. If you look to your left under the capital asset fund, the 937,000 relates to the carrying value of your furniture, equipment, your computers, and the biggest asset is your current leasehold interest in the Maggie Benston premises, which of course, once you move into the new building, there will be a disposition. The other amount this year, which is new, the $1.2 million under the Build SFU fund, that's some of the furniture that was bought and equipment for the new student union building, which of course will hopefully be done this fiscal year. And then you can see the very big number under the total column, $49,709,000. That's how much has been spent on Build SFU to that date. And then some minor intangible assets. So at the end of the fiscal year, you can see the Student Society had $73,573,000 in assets. Liabilities, just to give you a feel, the types of liabilities that are in place at the end of the year. The bank loan of $1 million is what has to be paid on the principal over the next year. Accounts payable of 6.7 million, of which about 5.1 million relates to the construction costs been incurred on the Build SFU, but not yet paid. And then deferred revenue of 1.7 million, of which most of that relates to the timing of monies going in and out of the undergraduate health plan. And then finally, this is the rest of your bank loan at the end of the year, 34,904,000. And then you have an item that will be gone this year, given the student union building is completed. 3.5 million. This is an advance payment from the university for the partial surrender of your lease premises. So when the building is the current building, the premises you move out of, so to speak, and go into the new building, this will be the proceeds of disposition. So you can see your total liabilities at the end of the year, 47,854,000. And then the fund balances, your equity, you can see them in all the various funds. If you look under the general fund, 2.747,369,000, that's what Corbett was referring to earlier in the general fund. And then you can see the total fund balances, 25,718,000, which has increased by about 4.275 million from last year. So that means overall, the Student Society has improved its financial position as compared to the prior year. And then we're going to go quickly to the next page, please, the statement of operations and changes in fund balances. This is also known as an income statement. So these are, this statement sets out the Student Society's revenue and expenses for the year ended April 30, 2020. And again, we'll only highlight some of the larger items and we'll look under the total column. So the activity fees for the year were 12,809,000, as was noted earlier by Corbett. A good chunk of that increase related to the Fraser International Agreement. Fiscal 19 had 4 months versus 12 months this year. And Build SFU has a increase every January, and that attributes to the increase in total revenue. But I believe overall there was a similar number of students. Some of the other big revenues, you can see interest and other, 282,100. So that's gone up about 40,000 from the prior year. So the total revenues, $13,236,000. The expenses, generally speaking, are somewhat comparable, but you should look through, if you haven't already, the various schedules that give out some of the details. For example, admin and financial office, general office, etc. And then the other big expenditure, of course, is under activity and program expenditures, 6.438 million, with by far and away the biggest item incurred is your undergraduate health plan. You can see there 5.413 million was incurred this year, and that's 760,000 more than the prior fiscal year, although you can't see that individually. Then you can see the discretionary grants to the DSUs and the clubs, 125,000 and 221,000. And as noted again earlier, student bursaries, the expenditures are up substantially from 185,900 to just under $500,000, 493,800. And then you have some amortization of 208,000 or depreciation of your Maggie Benston leasehold interest and some equipment. So the total expenses, 8.961 million. and your excess of revenue or expenses, 4.275 million. See the carrying fund or balance or equity, 21,442,000, and that's how you get to your total equity of 25,718,000. So that's a summary of the income statement for the year. I won't go through the independent auditors report. It's at the beginning of the statement. So the statements are yours. The Student Society, independent, pardon me, auditors report is ours. So what the report says is that we're able to perform our audit in accordance with standard. And most importantly to the membership is that the opinion that the statements present fairly in all material respects in accordance with the accounting standard, Canadian accounting standards, for not-for-profit organizations is what we call clear unqualified. So that's a good thing because it says the statements present fairly in all material respects. So that's a brief overview. The numbers are very, very big and substantial. So again, if you haven't already, we encourage you to look through the statements in more detail at your convenience. So any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Gary. I will open the floor now to questions or comments from the assembly. Please just raise your hand if you would like to speak and I will call on you. So are there any questions or comments on the assembly, from the assembly on these financial statements? All right, in that case, I will read out the motion. So be it resolved to receive, let me open it. So whereas the independent auditor's report is included in the financial statements package, be it resolved to receive the report from the auditor. Be it further resolved to receive the financial statements for the year ended April 30th, 2020. Would someone like to move that motion? Member Ubnidir, would you like to move that motion? You'll be unmuted in just a moment.
Yes, I would like to move the motion.
Thank you very much. Member Parmar, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, I'd like to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parmar. That motion has been moved and seconded. All right, any discussion on the motion? If not, we will put it to a vote. Your vote will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you wish to abstain. The poll will be open for 1 minute, at which point I will announce the result of the vote. All right, so that motion is carried with 95% in favor and 5% against. So thank you. We are now moving on to the next item on the agenda. So the motion reads, be it resolved that Tompkins Wozni LLP Chartered Professional Accountants be appointed as the Simon Fraser Student Society Auditor for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Would someone like to move this motion? Please do throw through the hand up function. Member Lozitsky, would you like to move this motion?
Yes, I'd love to move the motion.
Thank you. The motion has been moved. Member Bastan, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, I would like to second that motion.
Thank you very much. The motion has been seconded. Any discussion? Please put your hand up if you would like to have any, if you would like to speak in favor or motivate against this motion. All right, if not, we'll put it to a vote. It will be conducted through the poll feature on Zoom. Please take the time now to cast your vote. Do not cast a vote if you would like to abstain. The poll will be open for 2 minutes, at which point I will announce the results of the vote. All right, so that motion is carried with 95% in favor and 5% against. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda. So we're now at the open space period. This portion of the meeting is where students may ask questions regarding the activities of the Student Society in the last year. It shall continue until there are no further questions or until we have reached the 20-minute mark, whichever comes first. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak? Please raise your hand. Member Kianajad, you have the floor.
Hello. There's one thing I wanted to mention that I feel like has never been mentioned in any of these meetings. It's the way that the IT system at SFU works. I feel like you guys need to set something up so that they can be held accountable for decisions that they make. Some of these decisions that have impacted, me and a lot of other students I know is that they changed how my experience works out. The layout is really, really bad right now. There's that, and then I don't know, they changed out my schedule, so now you can't view it, like if you're not signed in. There's all these decisions that they make on our behalf, behind our back, and they never give us any reason for why they do it. And there's nobody to hold them accountable. They can just do whatever they want. So I just wish there was some way to hold them accountable, because we really do suffer at the hands of the IT system. We need somebody to, talk to them on our behalf. We can't just have them keep doing this to us. They keep on making changes, all stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kianajad. I would like to, if you're willing to clarify, when you say IT system, could you clarify what you mean by that?
Sure. I mean just the people who make all the changes in the SFU IT system, such as Go SFU, My Experience, all Mail SFU, all these different changes, because they keep on making changes on things that, like, to me and a lot of other people, they seem to be working just fine, and they make changes to it, and they give us no reason for why they make the changes either. They just make the change, and now we have to deal with like a really weird, awkward system. And this is, not the only instance. Of course, there was that thing that happened where they leaked all the info. Not quite sure what happened there, but I'm just saying that There's fishy stuff is going on. I just wish there was more transparency and ways to hold them accountable for what they do to our information and the system that we are paying for.
Thank you so much, Member Kianajad. And I really appreciate that you brought this forward, and I can speak to this briefly, and then I will turn to my fellow board members if they would like to speak. But I think you've really exemplified, some of the issues that students can bring forward that we would like to be able to advocate for you on your behalf. I think that this is definitely something that our University and Academic Affairs Committee should be taking a look at. The SFSS is also part of a committee that is comprised of 2 representatives from the SFSS, 2 representatives from the Graduate Student Society and University Admin, where essentially we bring up issues that we think are if something inappropriate happened, or if we believe that students need more services, etc. Wherever we think that the university needs to budge on something, that's the avenue that we bring it down. So I am hopeful that the advocacy of the society, this is somewhere where we can pick up. Member Leosis is the chair of the University and Academic Affairs Committee. So we will make sure that that is something that is followed up on. So thank you for bringing that forward. And if you are a part of a student union, that kind of thing, that's a really good avenue, as well as when things are brought to council. It's usually well attended by board and councilors. So issues there get addressed fairly quickly as well. I'd like to give the floor to Member Arsenault. You may go ahead.
Hi there, just a quick question. First of all, thank you for making the meeting work online. And that's quite a lot of challenges with that, and I appreciate it being done as smoothly as possible. I was just wondering, will there be an opportunity for members to provide feedback on how this experience could be improved should we have to do an AGM online again in the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Arsenault. While I cannot speak on behalf of the board, I can say that as a board member, I will definitely be looking into doing a debrief on how this meeting went, and also trying to solicit feedback from counselors and also the general student body on what could be improved. So that's something that I'm definitely very interested in doing. And yeah, I'm really hoping that we don't have to have another virtual AGM or only virtual. I think there are some merits to having it online, but we will definitely be asking for feedback and finding out how we can do it better next time if we do need to. So thank you very much. I will give the floor to Member Ubnadir.
Yes, thank you. Just the point I want to raise, we voted against extending the meeting. We had to do so for legal purposes. I'm hoping we could, and I want to thank everyone that raised their issues. They are important, but I'm hoping that we can adjourn the meeting now that everything that we've needed to address has been addressed, so that people can go, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ubnadir. I currently do not see any other hands up in the chat. That to me is signifying that we are reaching the end of this open period. And for that reason, I will move into item 13, which is the adjournment. So be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at 6:54 p.m. Would someone like to move this motion? Member Hoven, would you like to move this motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Wong, would you like to second this motion?
Yes, I would like to second the motion.
I could not hear you. Member Wong, would you like to second this motion?
Hello? Am I on mute?
Oh, you're very, very quiet.
My apologies. I would like to second the motion.
Thank you. All right, perfect. So the motion has been moved and seconded. With no further discussion, we will now put this to a vote. All those in favor of the adjournment of the meeting? Then please put your vote in via the Zoom poll. If you'd like to abstain, please do not cast a vote. We will have this poll open for 1 minute. All right, so the motion is carried with a 94% in favor and 6% against. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming to our annual general meeting. I see the numbers quickly dropping, but just want to say another thank you to everyone. I'm excited to see the changes that are to come in coming years. So goodbye, have a good night, enjoy the rest of your week.